Hi everyone, today let's talk about the debt ceiling bill just a little bit more. Then we'll get into economic factors. Then we'll talk about Max Payne and get into the charts. Then we'll look at my results for the day and my thoughts going into tomorrow's session. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I make videos like this every single day that the markets are open as well as Sundays, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. So we got a deal supposedly over the weekend. But now we have House Republicans coming out and saying this might be a bit of an issue. We already thought this was going to be the case. Usually the hard players on the left and the right are going to come out against a deal where some concessions were made. But hopefully that doesn't matter and that the two parties will come together to some degree in the center with enough votes to pass. Obviously, there is no alternative. We're talking about just a few days from now, the federal government would run out of money. But that does not stop the fact that some players are going to come out and make political statements. They say what they got was cosmetic policy changes and not the transformative change that they were promised. I think that's a little bit overstating what was possible here. Things generally take a long time in the government, and that is by design. So to think transformative change in one bill was going to happen was a little bit overstating in my opinion. But of course, they need to make their political statements to stay relevant. You do have some pretty harsh words for Speaker McCarthy, saying that no one in the Republican conference could have done a worse job than he did. And moving down here, you can see the same thing is actually happening on the Democratic side. They say they were leery of new work requirements for food stamps and cuts to discretionary spending, which we expected to happen. It just doesn't seem to be getting broadcast the same way that we're seeing in the headline from the GOP side, but really it is happening on both sides, which is generally the case. Again, like I said, I think these are the fringe players on both sides, and hopefully the majority in the center can come to an agreement and get this passed so we don't have a catastrophic economic event. Moving over to the economic calendar, you can see consumer confidence actually stepping up quite substantially, lower than the previous read, but higher than expectations. Moving over to tomorrow, don't forget we have the JOLTS report here at 10 o'clock. That's going to be a big one. It hasn't impacted the markets the last two times as it was during the higher inflationary periods, but still important to watch. Moving over to earnings just for a moment, there was nothing really today. HP came out, not much to say. Salesforce is tomorrow. CrowdStrike, another company I like quite a bit. Chewy, we've talked about them on the channel before. Again, not much, but a few things out here for tomorrow. Moving over to Max Payne, you can see still sitting at 415. You can see this nice dip right between the puts here at 420 and the calls here at 423. I think that's probably the range that we're going to sit on for the Friday close, in my opinion. Max Payne, like I said, 415 here. Could come down to maybe 417. Definitely interesting. But the put call ratio is still very high here at 3.18. And almost 1.6 million options in the market now, so pretty substantial. Tons and tons of puts, and it's just hard to see the markets going down when there are so many bears buying up all of these puts. Moving over to the charts, starting off with the S&Ps. You can see we hit that upper range, came back into the middle here, so now we're still trading off of 418.12 to the downside, 421.85 to the upside. Tag that level, strong rejection, momentum is fading. Might see this pull back a little bit more to that 417 area. That would be interesting. You can see on the daily chart what that looked like. Gap up, fell, finished basically unchanged on the day. If we break out of that 421.85 level, there's quite a bit of room up to 428.59 in my opinion. Momentum on the daily chart has really started to fade here, however, so keeping an eye on this one. It's still bullish momentum. It's still bullish RSI, but the amount of momentum is very low compared to what we had been seeing on the initial portions of this rally. If we're going to get that continuation, you really want to see this start to accelerate here. Volume, step down today, not a big day. So overall, pretty neutral in this range here on the SPY. Moving over to the NASDAQ here on the 15-minute and the 12-hour, you can see we hit that upper resistance similar to the SPY, moved back into the middle of the range here, so 347.85 to the downside, 353.20 to the upside, my two levels that I'm watching. Momentum more bullish, still very solid volume here on the NASDAQ. Momentum stepping up here in the after hours on the 15-minute chart. It does look like a big wick rejection on the 12-hour, so that's something to pay attention to. If this does break down below 347.85, maybe we get a little bit of a pullback down to the 9 EMA. Obviously, the trend and everything are still very bullish, but that doesn't mean we couldn't get a short-term pullback similar to what we saw here from May 22nd into May 24th. Pullback to the 21 EMA, which would be a pretty substantial move from where we are now. Certainly a possibility, but everything is still very bullish here on the NASDAQ, and I would be very patient trying to short if you are looking to. Still within this range, looking up to 356.80 if we break to the upside. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow here on the 4-hour chart, you can see the Russell hit this 177.33 level, wicked that level in the pre-market, sold off all the way back into my next lower zone. Hit the 200 SMA, VWAP, a couple of EMAs in here. Then we bounced a little bit into the after hours. Definitely nice to see. Looks like a solid area of support. We didn't come all the way down to my 174.38 level before finding support, which to me means this is a little bit of a bullish look into tomorrow. Maybe we break above 176, get up to 177.33 once again. Overall, this looks more bullish to me. If we break out above 176, I might look to enter a position looking for that $1 move to the upside here. Overall, looks a little bit bullish here on the Russell. Definitely interesting. Momentum, basically zero. RSI at the 50 line, so no clear direction on either of the indicators here. But in terms of price, this looks like a low, higher low setup. And then if this starts to break out and takes out this high, then we can look at a high, higher high trend. And then we'll see what happens from there. Moving over to the Dow, very similar in terms of a setup. Rallied, got above the level, came back, tested that level, 9 EMA VWAP, got the cross here on the 9 and 21 EMAs. Starting to look a little bit more bullish up to that 332.44 level. So now you have support at 329.40. We've been watching that level for a while, looking for a move back up to 332.44. Moving over to Apple and Tesla here on the 12-hour chart, you can see Apple broke above my level, 176.13. Now we're looking up to 179.61. If that level breaks, then we're looking up to 182.28, which would be all-time highs here for Apple. Very close to that level. Seems like we're starting another move higher here. Everything continues to look bullish. Tesla also got a very bullish push on the day, hitting our next major resistance here, 203.81. We rejected a little bit off of that level. We're about $3 lower here now. And looking at this move here, you can see we came up to this level, rejected from there, and got a significant move lower. Found support back into this zone now after testing this downtrend line. Now, if this area breaks, there's actually quite a bit of room to the next major resistance here, which would be the high from this dip low retest area at 323.84. So kind of a consolidation area. If we do break out, I could see this moving fairly quickly through this zone. That would be very interesting. So overall, Tesla looking very bullish. Momentum, very bullish. RSI, also very bullish. Pretty overbought on RSI. Certainly could see maybe a little bit of a pullback off of this resistance here. So be patient, at least a little bit. But again, all the factors on both of these charts still say bullish. Moving over to ROKU and Netflix here. ROKU making another spike higher, hitting that 200 SMA. This now looks like a higher low setup. Looks a little bit more bullish. Momentum ticking back into bullish. Overall, this just looks a little bit better here now. I still would like to see it get above the 200 SMA, but this doesn't seem like a bad setup. Maybe it pulls back a little bit to 56.25, potentially retest support, and then see another move higher. But overall, ROKU looks a little bit more bullish just about every day, it seems like. Moving over to Netflix, we have another clear breakout, pushed up to our next level here, 392.92. Above that, there's actually quite a bit of room to my next major resistance sitting up at 455. So I might be watching this one a little bit closer. Momentum, super bullish. RSI, super bullish. It seems like Netflix is really setting up for a pretty substantial move higher over the next few days. Moving over to Broadcom and NVIDIA, the two top performers over the last week. In the NASDAQ, you can see Broadcom threw a huge wick, almost up to 925 after closing last week around 812. So that was a huge move on the day and then finished down 1.16%. So very interesting here. Big wick rejection. Certainly could just be that this is an initial push into new territory. Obviously, we're at all-time highs here on Broadcom. If this continues to rally here, maybe we push back into the zone and we start to see some buyers after that initial test. Or there's always the potential that this is starting to be a little bit of some profit taking and we start to see this pull back a little bit more substantially. Definitely something to watch, not necessarily to play in terms of options or anything, but keeping an eye on this, especially if you're trading the NASDAQ. Similarly, here on NVDA, we got a gap up, a little bit of a rejection, still very positive on the day, but it did move lower after the gap up. Moving over to LULU and Amazon here. LULU continuing to crater, but it's getting very close to some support around this 325 area. You also have the 200 SMA at 330.83. So definitely getting into a more interesting zone here. They also have earnings coming up, so we'll see how that plays out. Amazon rocketing higher. Once again, looking at trend resistance up around 125.20. Momentum very bullish. RSI does have some clear divergence between this previous high and current high, but either way, still very bullish, and you have to be watching this to at least hit that trend resistance. Moving over to consumer staples and consumer discretionary, you can see staples finally hit our price target, 72.50 to the downside. Now we have to see if this trend line and horizontal support are going to hold. We've broken a couple of levels here, so this is still a downtrend, very much bearish, but we're in a more interesting area, hitting this previous consolidation before the run. You can see quite a bit of bullish volume on this last candle of the day, so certainly could be a point of reversal, something to watch. Discretionary gapped up, fell a little bit, filled the gap, and then rallied back into the middle here. 153.90 got tested, still holding as resistance. If that breaks, we're watching trend resistance at 155. And then 158.03 is my next horizontal resistance above that. Still looks very much like an uptrend. Momentum bullish, RSI also bullish. Moving over to gold and oil and gas here. Gold was one of the top performers. You can see we hit this support at 180, retesting this trend line now. If we reject from here, that's going to be pretty bearish. Momentum and RSI are both bearish on gold here, so definitely not. So I would be patient to be buying off of this level. 180 is the level, but this can be pretty choppy in here. And if it gaps below this level, it could certainly move very quickly, just like it did moving through this zone after this breakout here. Oil and gas gap down through a big wick into this support area again. So support definitely holding. If this breaks below 116.64, that could be a pretty good short in my opinion. We do have this official lower high set up versus this previous high. But if we start to bounce from here, that would be a higher low versus this previous low. So it seems a little bit more like a consolidation now on oil and gas, but an interesting wick rejection on that candle for the day. Moving over to transports here on the hour and the daily, you can see we're kind of in a consolidation now. Momentum is fading. RSI looks a little bit weaker here on the hourly chart. Kind of looks like a lower high setup now versus this previous high. We are holding above the EMAs and SMAs on the shorter time frames, but if this starts to break down, especially below 225.63, this highest traded zone here, that would be interesting. Bunch of wicks to the upside, looking like rejection from this zone. Moving over to the daily chart, you can see we've had two dojis in a row, pretty much holding in this range. Still looks like consolidation. Momentum basically zero. RSI very close to that 50 line. Overall neutral here on transports. Moving over to yields, you can actually see a little bit of cooling on yields, which is interesting. Got back below 450 here on the 2-year, below 375 on the 10-year, starting to pull back. Still an uptrend, still holding above the 200 SMA on both of these, but it seems like at least a short-term retrace is starting to play out. Moving over to stocks above their 50 and 200-day averages. This one's a little bit tougher to see. These charts aren't really giving any clear direction at this point. You can see we got a little bit of an island reversal, gap down, gap up. Now we're holding in this zone, gapped up a little bit and then retraced to support here on the 50-day average. If we see a rally back up to 40, that would definitely be bullish, but we're below all the EMAs and SMAs. And either way, the breadth on both of these is very low. 40% on the 200-day average, 33% here on the 50-day average. If this is the pullback that we've been waiting for off of this consolidation, and this is all we're going to get, this could be an interesting buying opportunity, but I'm still being patient and it seems like we might get a little bit more pullback in my opinion. Moving over to the dollar here on the hourly and the 12-hour, you can see we've tested this level a couple of times now and pulled back. This looks like a little bit more of a consolidation before a potential pullback now than it has recently. We've tested the level multiple times. We've held in this zone. Looks a little bit weaker, getting below the 9 EMA here on the 12-hour chart. Momentum flipping slightly bearish. RSI breaking down as well. I'll be watching this one closely. Maybe we just get a pullback to 103.64 and that's all we get. But overall, this looks a little bit more bearish in the short term. Moving over to JNK and TLT, you can see JNK jumped up, got above my 91 level. So definitely rallied a little bit. We're above the 9 EMA. We're stuck at 21 and VWAP, but RSI is moving more bullish. Momentum moving more bullish as well. Similarly here on TLT, nice step up. We're getting that follow through on momentum, volume picking up, nice little spike here. So overall, these are going a little bit more bullish, but either way here, we are still in a downtrend on the medium time frame. So watching this one closely, short-term bullish, but still might be a lower high setup before pulling back some more. Moving over to bond and S&P volatility, you can see bond volatility pulled back a little bit. We saw that on the bonds charts, saw a little bit more bullishness. Looking at the VIX here, you can see another gap down, holding in the zone, and we're back into this consolidation area. Moving over to my accounts here, you can see I made a little bit of money. I was bullish going into the day, and we held on the IWM basically throughout the day. Fell a little bit, but not enough to make me lose money. NASDAQ up a little bit, about 0.5%. So all of those positions worked out from the weekend session, from the weekend video. Going into tomorrow here, you can see I have a 174 put. Small profit there. It's not every day that you get to trade a Wednesday one-day option here on the IWM, so I took advantage of that. Looking at the Qs here, I sold 2 of the 347 puts. Small profit there as well. We'll see how this plays out tomorrow. It did look a little bit weak at the end of session, but obviously the NASDAQ is still very strong and certainly could rocket higher at any moment, it seems like. So overall, still bullish going into tomorrow. Just a little bit more hesitant than I was on the Thursday and Friday session of last week. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of the debt ceiling bill. Is it actually going to get passed, or is this just a friendly handshake between McCarthy and the president? Seems like there's a lot of hand waving going on, but ultimately I do expect something to get passed. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.